I now invite Chris Avadudo to come forward to light the chalice and lead us in our affirmation of covenant, which is in your order of service. Please.
Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Please join me in our affirmation of covenant that you will find listed in your service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow together with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Some folks like to sigh, some folks do, some folks do, some folks long to die. But that's not me nor you. Long live the merry, merry heart that laughs by night and day, like the queen of mirth, no matter what some folks say. That song was written by Stephen Foster, America's first professional songwriter. It's one of my very favorite songs. Some folks say that Stephen Foster's music is quaint and outdated, and some of it offensive. But I think this song shows more than any other that Foster was an artist in touch with timeless and universal human themes. Some folks fear to smile, some folks do, some folks do, others laugh through guile, oh, but that's not me nor you. Long live the merry, merry heart that laughs by night and day, like the queen of mirth, no matter what some folks say. This song shows Foster as an observer of human foibles that are the same today as they were in his time. Human behavior, human moods, human diversity are the same from generation to generation. What changes is how we perceive our diversity and what we do with it. However much the diversity of human characters may be the same from age to age, what changes is our collective character as a society, as communities, as a people, as we shape and reshape consensus about what is acceptable and what is not, what is fair and what is unjust, what is right and what is wrong. And in this song, Foster offers us one of the keys to building a world in which what is acceptable to us by habit and shared understandings comes closer to what is fair and what is right. If we can laugh at our foibles and keep joy in our hearts, we can find the courage and the will to build a better world. Not letting our cares weigh us down, but striving toward a hopeful vision of peace and justice, we can bring about the better world we seek. Some folks get gray hairs, some folks do, brooding o'er their cares. But that's not me nor you. Long live the merry, merry heart that laughs by night and day, like the queen of mirth, no matter what some folks say. Now you might be saying to yourself, indeed you might have said to yourself when you read the description of the service in the newsletter, why is our minister going to talk about Stephen Foster? Is he just indulging his love of history again? Is this just an excuse for him to sing from the pulpit? No. Attend. When Stephen Foster wrote Some Folks, he was 29 years old. The year was 1855, and he'd already written most of the songs for which he is most remembered. Oh, Susanna, Camptown Races, Old Folks at Home, better known as Swanee River, My Old Kentucky Home, Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair, all of those he'd done. And by this time, he'd written all the songs, at least 15 of them, that he wrote in black dialect, the ones with all the D's and dozes that condescendingly refer to African Americans as darkies or worse. That's the Foster we remember. And in one way, it's good that we remember that, and in another way, it's a shame. Because there was so much more to him than that as a person, and there was so much more going on in his music than that, even in his dialect songs. Now, we're coming into the winter holidays, and I hope that each time you look at a Christmas tree this year, you'll remember that it was a Unitarian, the Reverend Charles Follen, who introduced the Christmas tree custom to America. And I hope that you'll remember why he did that: to build character in young children, to teach them patience and self-control, to look at all those presents under the tree without opening any before Christmas Day. And also to make Christmas a holiday about home and family instead of revels and mischief. All those wassail songs that come from an older Christmas tradition that was more like the Feast of Fools than the Christmas we know, that's what he was facing. It used to be that people went wassailing to the homes of the wealthy and the powerful, turning the social order on its head, demanding to be served by them for a change, demanding free food and drink, wassail and figgy pudding. And we won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, so bring it right here. In early America, this tradition had become an excuse for malicious damage and violence. Christmas was a time when it wasn't safe to leave your home, maybe not even to stay there. When Charles Follen promoted the Christmas tree, he was trying to turn America's culture away from all that. Something similar was going on in Stephen Foster's music. For wassail, substitute minstrel shows. For the Christmas tree, substitute parlor music. Parlor music was home entertainment, but it was more than that. It was a mark of refinement. According to Godey's Ladies' Book, a magazine that advised unmarried young ladies how to make themselves attractive to potential suitors, to be seen lugging groceries was unspeakably vulgar. But a roll of music looks so perfectly genteel. It announces that you can not only play, but can afford to get all the novelties as they appear. Foster grew up in Pittsburgh, a major stop on the concert tour circuit, where pianos had been manufactured since 1813, and where there was a symphony orchestra and 3 musical societies, remarkable for a town in what was then still considered the West. Foster sold his first songs to publishers serving this upscale market. When he decided to make songwriting his career, though, he sought out performers. Nobody was then devoting full time to writing music as he was to do. So there was no system of royalties, no songwriters union. People who wrote songs made money by performing them themselves. And though he was a precocious musical talent, as a child, Foster never made a career performing. He probably gave away his first hit, Oh, Susanna. It became popular during the gold rush. Its protagonist is a traveler who must look and sound crazy to everyone he meets. That sounds like the gold rush, right? And people made up their own verses to that song on their way west to the gold fields. That song was treated like a folk song. No one knew who had written it. Foster saw his market and his error. When his Swanee River was published by minstrel show manager E.P. Christie as his own, Foster contacted Christie and made a deal to write songs for him with his own name on them. Thus, he entered the world of professional music shows. Now, Christie's Minstrels was a big deal. They enjoyed a 7-year run at New York's Mechanics Hall from 1847 to 1854, a record at that time. Nobody had a run that long. And it was a groundbreaking minstrel troupe in that E.P. Christie was trying to elevate what had been bawdy entertainment to something polite and middle class families could enjoy. Sort of how, like, vaudeville was a step up from burlesque. Not a big step. But the sexual innuendo and the racial prejudice were considerably toned down, though still there. Minstrel shows became popular in the 1830s when tensions were rising over slavery. It all started as a roadshow innovation by a New York actor named Thomas Dartmouth Rice, known on stage as Daddy Rice. He would put on tattered clothes, a woolly wig, smear burnt cork on his face, and sang a song called Jump Jim Crow. That's where that comes from. So that was in 1830. And the next year, right after he started doing that, came the first issue of William Lloyd Garrison's The Liberator and Nat Turner's Slave Rebellion. So tensions were rising. Later that decade came the Amistad trial. So the first minstrel troupe, the Virginia Minstrels, began touring in 1843. Until then, blackface had been a genre of solo acts. Now it featured in an ensemble act. One of the founders of the Virginia Minstrels, by the way, was a songwriter named Daniel Emmett, who wrote Dixie. Blackface shows quickly descended into raunchy and dehumanizing caricature. It became a sort of entertainment people associated with vice. It was also one of the very few places where taboo topics like sex and violence and race and class could be discussed at all. Christie saw a middle-class market for minstrelsy. Foster sought to join him in elevating popular tastes. As I said, it was not a big step up. It was still blackface. It was still demeaning. But Foster sought to make it less dehumanizing, and no less a figure than Frederick Douglass understood what he was doing. Douglass said, "It would seem almost absurd to say it, considering the use that has been made of them, that we have allies in the Ethiopian songs," as minstrel music was called. Old Kentucky Home can make the heart sad as well as merry, and can call forth a tear as well as a smile. They awaken the sympathies for the slave, in which anti-slavery principles take root and flourish. Foster's songs portrayed black people in homes, in families, in loving relationships, having the same concerns white people would recognize in themselves. Though this does not seem to us like a big step for pre-Civil War America, it was an important step. The sort of demeaning and racist entertainment that began with Jump Jim Crow and grew with the minstrel shows persisted in mainstream popular entertainment until rather recent times, lifetimes of some of us here. Amos and Andy was one of the most popular programs on radio. It was blackface without makeup, and even made it to television for a while. That's how durable blackface proved to be in Foster's hands. As Douglass saw, it held a creative and hopeful middle ground between silence and violence. A big ground in the middle that America had to bridge. Foster addressed other social ills in his songs in similar ways. Economic justice, for example. Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. That song was published the same year as Some Folks and qualifies his message about the power of laughter and joy. While we seek mirth and beauty and music light and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. Home and happiness are as vital to our less fortunate neighbors as they are to us. Foster seeks to awaken our sympathies. In 1855, the year those songs were written, both of Foster's parents died. His father was an alcoholic, and that had something to do with both of their deaths. Foster's mother died first of a stroke. She had been the mainstay of the family, holding it together for almost 50 years through many ups and downs and persistent economic hardship. His father had joined a temperance society in 1833, but struggled with alcoholism all his life. He was an invalid for about the last 4 years of his life. Foster himself, it's said, struggled with alcohol, or so the legend goes. The year his parents died, he wrote his only temperance song, which I don't have the tune of. Here's one verse. "O comrades, fill no glass for me to drown my soul in liquid flame. For if I drank, the toast should be to blighted fortune, health, and fame." I can't help seeing this song written after his father's death as a reflection on his father's life. Later, with his collaborator, the lyricist George Cooper, he was to write songs depicting the trouble alcoholism brings to marriages. Perhaps Cooper wrote on this topic with a wit that Foster found it hard to summon. My wife is a most knowing woman. She always is finding me out. She never will hear explanations, but instantly puts me to rout. There is no use to try to deceive her if out with my friends night or day. In the most inconceivable manner, she tells where I've been right away. She says that I'm mean and inhuman. Oh, my wife is a most knowing woman. There's 3 more verses of that sort of thing. Then comes the temperance moral of the story. Yes, I must give all of my friends up if I would live happy and quiet. One might as well be 'neath a tombstone as live in confusion and riot. This life we all know is a short one, though some tongues are long, heaven knows. And a miserable life is a husband's who numbers his wife with his foes. I'll stay at home now like a true man, for my wife is a most knowing woman. And that's a message still given today in 12-step and other recovery groups, that the company you keep can work against your sobriety. And your first commitment should be to those who love you most faithfully. It's the truth about alcoholism. It's telling it like it is. And ultimately, that's the story of social and cultural change. Our prejudices die hard. It's too easy to accept them as truths in company that doesn't question them. It's too easy not to question them in systems, institutions, cultures, conventions that are built on them, teach and perpetuate them. It can cost you in all sorts of ways: friends, opportunities, success. And it's hard to have any impact on whole cultures and institutions. It takes a lot of courage and self-discipline to stand against and apart from conventional ideas and common prejudices. But it's worth persevering and even sacrificing to stand by higher values and greater good. The hardest thing of all for so many of us is to see and overcome the prejudices that we've been taught from childhood. That's why the effectiveness of our justice work to undo racism and other systems of oppression depends on our self-reflection and acknowledgement of those deeply instilled habits, beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions that we have that are rooted in racism, sexism, homophobia, or classism. It was almost impossible for most Am I on? Yeah. It was don't know, it's the wire apparently. I'm going to soldier on. It was almost impossible for most 19th century white Americans to see African Americans even as human. That was the reality of the time. It's taken more than 150 years for us collectively to work toward the imperfect state of consciousness of injustice that we have today. And we know we have more work to do. Stephen Foster didn't aim as high as we do when he sought to elevate the minstrel show repertoire and refine popular tastes, and his success at that was limited. But he knew that the way to combat our meanest impulses was to appeal to higher values and human sympathy, to laugh at our foibles, to keep joy in our hearts, and thus to nourish and empower ourselves to meet hardships and our own limitations with courage and hope and creativity and love and commitment to make a better world. Long live the merry, merry heart that laughs by night and day, like the queen of mirth, no matter what some folks say. So may it be. Amen.
I invite our chalice lighter back up to extinguish our chalice.
We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Please join in saying our closing words, which are in the order of service. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage.
Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings.
And may you keep joy in your heart to be strong no matter what.